if you live in Knox County. I represent you. I am currently in seat 10, which is one of the two at-large commissioners. So Knox County Commission has 11 members, 9 of which are very specific to a district that represent about 50,000 people, give or take. And then there are 2 seats that are the at-large seats that represent everyone in Knox County, which is about 450,000 people. So most people don't really realize this, but if you live in Knox County, you actually have 3 people that represent you on Knox County. If you live in the city, then you have even more representatives on both city and county. And so you have several people in which you can engage with. I'm a little bit about me real quick. I'm a 2-time graduate of the University of Tennessee. My undergrad was in arts, and my graduate, I got an MBA in business. I've been a Knox County resident for close to 25 years, back and forth, and have made Knoxville my home with my wife and 2 kids. We live in the Rocky Hill area of town. And a little bit about my background. I was a film and television producer for about 15 years. And I worked all over the world, and in Los Angeles, and in here doing cable television production in Knoxville, but before that doing feature film production in Los Angeles, and then different television and other video productions or video storytelling throughout the whole world. And had a great career, was very involved in different aspects, everything from feature films to documentary projects to commercials to basically anything that wasn't a soap opera I worked on, and really enjoyed all that I did in my career for some time. In Knoxville, got involved in the community in a more sort of civic-minded way early in the renaissance of downtown Knoxville. So early sort of 2002, 3, 4, started to get involved in downtown Knoxville and trying to figure out how to be part of the group that might help bring a little bit of life back to that. If you remember the early 2000s, downtown was a bit of a ghost town. And so I was the second resident of the Sturkey building, if you know where that is. Yep. Back when it was sort of the first big place to live. I was the guy who brought the ice rink back down to Market Square and got that up and running and turned that over to the city and renovated the building and started our career and path down there. Ultimately, had a great life, great career, involved with lots of civic and nonprofit organizations and the revitalization of downtown. And in 2007, I had a near fatal accident. Lowell and I's stories are very similar in sort of our paths of a little bit of potential personal tragedy that eventually led to public life. He and I actually worked together at the University of Tennessee Medical Center. I helped start the the Emergency and Trauma Survivors Council, and he and I both serve on that, where we now continue to go and talk to other patients, and we're peer mentors, where we go and engage with people who have had other traumatic accidents and learn and talk to them and help them navigate the system of healthcare. My accident was in July 29th of 2007. I had a near fatal accident where I shouldn't be here. I'm very, very lucky. I had a ladder collapse from underneath me while I was working on a roof. I fell about a story and a half face down on the concrete and broke every bone in my body. And I've had 13 surgeries and 10 years of putting me back together. But during that time, I mentioned that because that became sort of how I abandoned my film and television career and got more into public service. I'm the founder and CEO of an organization called Random Acts of Flowers. And when I was in the hospital, it's pretty simple. I got overwhelmed with flowers and support. Most guys have never been sent flowers in their whole life. And ultimately, I saw the person next door and the next door and the next door in the critical care unit that had no flowers, no visitors, no life in their room. And just loaded up my wheelchair and started making deliveries, didn't ask for permission or follow protocol. It was the right thing to do. And that led to the idea with all the flowers that are thrown away after a wedding or a funeral or a special event, even a grocery store or wholesaler that discards the overstock, take this perishable product, much like a food bank does, and give it a second life and take it to people in hospitals, healthcare facilities, nursing homes, senior care facilities, and hospice. Find something that is great, has life left to give, and give it to somebody who needs a little emotional health. So I focus a lot of my energy on helping support emotional health, mental health, and engaging with people in the healthcare industry, and that's been really my profession for 10 years now. We're a 10-year-old organization. Somewhere in the first couple of years, I abandoned my career. We sold our business, sold our building, and decided to see if we can nudge the world. And as I got more involved with public service through that and through a few other things, I had a few colleagues that were very engaged in public service, and ultimately that led to learning more about government and learning more about how local government is most effective of our lives and how important it was. And a few people whispered in my ear and said, would you ever think about this? And I said no for many, many years, and then eventually started to sort of poke around at it and think about county commission and learning about it. Ultimately, I married way up. My wife's way smarter than I am. And so as I started to talk more and more about it, and she was tired of hearing about it, she said, well, look, think about it a different way. Why don't you go figure out a reason why you wouldn't do it, okay? Go find a reason why not to do it instead of trying to convince yourself to do it and all the things that go along with politics. And so I took a different approach and ultimately dug in and ran for Knox County Commission and found an opportunity where there was a void in the leadership and an opportunity to serve. So I'm a first-time candidate, first-time office holder myself, and navigating it here after, 2 or 3 months on the job with a new administration and an opportunity to see if I can't nudge Knox County a little bit like I'm nudging the world in Random Acts of Flowers in the 4 or 5 states that we're going to expand to here. So that's my story, but you guys seem to like to answer a lot of questions, and maybe tell me a lot of stuff that I don't know, which is great. And so I'll do my best to answer. But I will put one little asterisk on the Q&A part here. Is during the campaign I was really emphatic on one thing. Please ask me questions of things that I have a responsibility for. I'm not going to weigh into every social policy or every world issue. I had a woman ask me what I was going to do about North Korea during the campaign trail. I said, I promise you, I'm going to, I can't do anything. So if it's something that I can have an influence on for Knox County and Knox County Commission and it'll come before us, I'd love to engage with it, but I can't answer everybody's question about everything that's going on in the world. So I'll do my best, but that's my story. I'm happy to serve. I look forward to sort of being part of the big picture solution for Knox County, and I think we have a lot of nice opportunities ahead of us. So, fire away. Come on.
What's your film experience?
My film experience was.
I don't want money from you. I want.
I can't put you in a film anymore. I don't do that anymore. No, the biggest film that I worked on was Aaron Brockovich. So that's probably the one you've heard of the most. I also worked on a movie called with John Claude Van Damme called Universal Soldier: The Return, which is a really bad action film. If you want to rent it, go ahead. Hey,
as you know, working the county commissioner, you're gonna, part of what you're gonna be doing is some things are PR dealing with the county and everything. So you've got a good skill there.
Well, I hope I can do a little storytelling to help. Yes, ma'am.
What do you think is the main, issue facing Knox County what's your pet project that you
Those are 2 questions.
Okay.
So the question is, I'm going to form it into 2 questions if that's okay. What's the biggest issue that I feel like Knox County is facing, number 1, and then what are my passions for service? I think the single biggest challenge that Knox County is going to face is growth. And our planning commission estimates somewhere in the nature of 100 to 200,000 more people are going to move to Knox County in the next 10 to 20 years, which is, if you think there's 450,000 now, it's half our population potentially overnight. We have a very, very attractive place to live, and we have a lot of people moving here and a lot of people expanding here and bringing businesses here, and we're going to have to figure out how to manage that growth. That has everything to do with schools and infrastructure and land use and traffic and all the things that go along with growth. Growth can be wonderful, but growth can also be something that if you don't manage it well, that's going to be our biggest challenge. I think everything will stem from that one big issue, and land use is probably the single thing that ties to that the most, that impacts neighbors and neighborhoods. My personal passion, I'm most interested on a big picture level. I'm very, very focused on big picture items that might help move things in the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. I think it's fortunate to be an at-large position on commission because you don't get a lot of the calls of sort of like the barky dogs or the tree fell or those sort of end up in the districts first. And that's good because I think you can start thinking about conversations that might lay a bigger foundation. I would really like to dig my heels in on a mental health, emotional health, and some of the services and the programs and some of the ways in which we deal with mental health issues. I think that is a massive issue that we're not spending enough time and energy on.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.